So before I carry on with adding more details to my armrest, I just want to point out, if we step back to the very beginning so that you understand the basic principle, I create a very rough shape at the beginning. And you have to see it like sculpting, okay? Someone who's sculpting out of stone or clay, you create a rough shape and you don't start adding details. You chisel and you chisel and you chisel as you progress, okay? You don't start adding a lot of details. I can tell you from my experience when I was teaching in live classes at the university, one of the habits a lot of beginners had were making the mistake of creating all the fillets while they were creating the initial curves and all that stuff. Don't bother with all the details at the beginning because it's going to add to the complexity. So create a simple shape, extrude it, create a simple solid, and then you add little details like the fillets at much later with the fillet edge, the chamfer edge function. And these functions are great because once you are about to render, because you create a little chamfer here, it's going to capture the highlights, which is going to increase the level of realism when you're about to render, okay? It's the way it's catching the highlights and all that stuff. But I want to emphasize on the fact that don't bother with adding a lot of details when you're creating 2D curves or even 3D curves. Create a rough shape at the beginning, a simple shape, and then you start adding little by little details. Now that being said, I'm going to carry on. So for example, I can select my cap here and I'm going to change it to a green color. There you have it. If it doesn't change color, maybe what you need to do, in this case it worked, but check if your normals are pointing outwards. And the other recommendation I would give you is that whatever polysurface that you've created, and I'm talking about open polysurfaces like this. This one is a close, it's a solid, but for example, this one is an open polysurface. Let's see, if I flip the normals inwards, you see, even though it's green here, my back faces are blue, so that suggests to me that I'm seeing the back, so I need to flip the normals. That's what it's basically saying. So don't hesitate to check all your open polysurfaces and check if the normals are pointing outwards. In this case, if I click on analyze direction, you can see that all the white arrows are pointing inwards, and the good practice I would say is flip your normals. So you've got in the menu, while you have the analyze direction active, click on flip or press F on the keyboard and make sure that the white arrows are pointing outwards. And it's particularly important when you're creating Boolean operations to make sure that all your normals are pointing outwards and not inwards, okay? These are little tips of information that I think are important for you to try and remember. That's it, okay? So now I just want to add a bit more detail here for the pivot point. So it's a very simple thing I need to do is I'm going to create a circle. I'm going to snap in center. I'm going to remove the project. I'm going to snap in center and only have that checked on my snapping toolbar. Bring my cursor to the edge of one of my circles. I've got multiple circles here, as you can see. So it's going to find the coincidence, and I'm just going to roughly size it about this type of radius, all right, for my circle. And let me maximize this. So if I go in the ghosted mode, that's what it looks like. And I'm just going to drag it with the gumball a bit like this. Okay, maybe even more since it's completely hidden inside the armrest. Let's say about here. That looks about right. And then I'm going to do a solid, and I can so you remember in the surface I could extrude that curve straight and all that. I can do the same here with solid. As long as my curve is nice and planar, if I go here, solid, I've got extrude planar curve, and emphasize on planar, you see here. So if I do solid, extrude planar curve straight, it's going to create a solid automatically. So that's another way of extruding, and it's going to create a nice closed extrusion, as you can see here in my properties tab. So I just want to create this illusion of an axis where it can pivot around. If you want, you can add the pockets inside the armrest. I'm not going to do it, because since I'm going to render, you won't necessarily see the pockets or the hole. But if you want to add more details, feel free to do so, okay? So I leave that for you to do. Now what I need to do is add one button for the recline. So I'm going to go in my left viewport. I'm going to draw a circle from its center. And again, I'm just going to eyeball it like this. There you go. So what I can do also, if I press Shift and I press Alt at the same time, and then I select either the green handle or the red handle of my gumball, what I'm doing, by the Shift key makes it a scale 2D, as you can see. And by pressing Alt key at the same time, you see the little plus sign. That means I'm making a scale 2D and a copy at the same time, and I release it, and there you have it. So now I've got a bigger circle. It's an offset basically of what of that original circle. So I'm just going to position it a bit higher up, maybe about here, let's say. Okay, and yeah, I'm going to project it. So I'm going to put myself in the left viewport, make it active, select my two circles, which is the case now, click on the project curves icon, and I'm going to select my poly surface, which is the armrest, and right click. So when it did its projection, if I select, make a box selection, it did on the inside and obviously on the outside. I don't want the curves on the outside. I'm not interested in those, so I'm just going to delete this. All right. So now I'm going to select this curve, the inner one. Okay, if you can see this, I've got the outer one and the inner one. Okay, and this one I'm going to do an extrusion, but I'm going to give it a taper. All right, so I go to here to surface, extrude curve, and I've got here taper. So I can do a straight, along curve, 2 point, tapered. And in my tutorials where I cover the software itself with each function, I go one by one and explain what they do. All right, so if you haven't seen those tutorials, I recommend them. It's a good recap on all the different functions. And now I can already see that there's a taper angle as I'm extruding along the X direction. And if you want to change the angle, the draft angle it's called, instead of being 5, let's exaggerate it and bring it to 10 degrees. That's what you get. All right, so I'm going to leave it at 10 degrees and extrude it about this much. Now, because I extrude it just as a surface, not as a solid, this is obviously not capped. So what I can do, I know that this part here is planar. It's a perfectly flat circle. So I can use a function under my surface creation toolbar. So I bring my cursor here where it says surface from 3 or 4 corner points, right click to expand the toolbar. So it's called the surface creation toolbar. And you've got here the function, the second icon called surface from planar curves. I'm going to click on that. So the condition is that your curve has to be planar. Okay, it's important. So I can select this edge and right click, and it's going to cap it like that. So now I can join this surface with that surface, enter, and I have a nice poly surface. Now I think the normals are pointing inwards, so I'm going to, while I have this selected, I'm going to click on Analyze Direction, and indeed I can see with the white arrows that it's pointing inwards. So I'm going to click on the flip in the command line and right click to change the direction of my normal so that they point outwards. Now I'm going to add a fillet to that open poly surface. So under the Boolean Union icon, I expand the toolbar, go and find the fillet edges, and I'm going to select this edge, right click. Obviously it's too big, so I'm going to left click on the anchor point here and just give it a size. Let's say, let's round off a bit the edge, not too big, 0.033, that's fine, and right click. All right, so that's done. And now I've got this curve and that curve. I'm going to select them both. Okay, I'm going to use another surfacing tool. It's called the loft. So I go here in my surface creation toolbar. So loft, click on that. Now you see here, you've got two arrows. They're supposed to point in the same direction. That's important. Otherwise, you're going to have a twisting surface. Let me zoom in. You see this arrow here and that arrow here. First of all, line them up, as you can see, so you can move them around if you want. Maybe not in this case. No, okay, I cannot move them around, but I think that in certain situations you are able to move them around. However, I could flip the direction if I wanted, but I don't need to. I don't need to flip the direction like you see here. One is going upwards, the other one is going downwards. I just left click on the arrow and it's changing the direction. I want both of them pointing either both of them upwards or both of them downwards. It doesn't matter. And once you have that, you right click and you have your surface. Leave it at normal and just click OK. So I've got this surface here, and I'm going to add some thickness to that surface. So I'm going to select that surface. I'm going to go to solid. I'm going to extrude that surface, and I'm going to make it tapered. Okay, so I'm going to create a solid with some tapering. Let's see what it gives. So you see there's something going on. Now the taper is quite big, maybe. Let's see. If I change the taper angle to 1, let's see what it does. It doesn't look. Let me see from. Okay, let's try from the top view. It's not very good. I need quite a bit. Okay, let's try 25, or maybe if I tried -5. Okay, I just needed to change the direction of my draft, so I give it -5. What does it? No, that's not what I want. Let's give it 5. Doesn't look good at all. Okay, you know what? I'm going to drop the draft angle. I don't like what it does. So what I'm going to do is instead solid, extrude surface, and straight. And let's do it like that. I just want to add a bit of thickness, just like that. There you go. All right, and you can make sure that solid, in this case, it kept the original surface. So let me just hide this. I can delete this surface and bring back my solid here. All right, and now I can add a little fillet. So I go under my Boolean function, and I'm going to add fillet edge. Select this edge, right click. Obviously it's too big, so I'm going to click on set all, 0.01, right click. There you have it. And you can click on preview equals yes, and right click. Okay, so just a little fillet like that. All right, so that's for my button, and I'm going to make it green so that we see it well. So go to the properties tab where it says display color to green. There you go. Okay, and maybe also this part, I'm going to make it green for now, like that. Okay, once you've done that, let's see if you can add more details to your liking. All right, but I'm gonna select the bumper, my armrest, and I'm gonna select that cover and that that pivot point, let's call it that way, and I'm just gonna make a mirror. So to mirror it, it's under the move tool, expand the toolbar, and it's this icon here, mirror. So make sure copy equals yes, because I want to keep the original where it is. And I'm going to say the start of my mirror plane, it's going to be at the origin 0. So I've typed 0, and you can see I can define the orientation of my axis now. So I'm just going to press shift, and I want to lock it along the Y direction to make the mirror axis. And there you have it. Okay, so now if I rotate about, we can see what it looks like. Let me just rotate a bit. There you go. Okay, so I'm not going to include the button on the other side. This one will be without the button on that side. All right, so do that, and then we can carry on with the seat pan and the seat base, its structure, and so on. All right, thank you.